It was a rainy night, the kind of cold silence where you could almost hear your own heartbeat. Inside a small diner in Arizona, a waitress named Ava Cole was wiping down tables when the sound of roaring engines broke the quiet. A group of bikers had stopped outside. Moments later, flashing police lights painted the windows red and blue. Officers surrounded one biker, his hands raised, fear written on his face. Ava watched through the glass, her heart pounding. Something inside whispered, "This isn't right." Without thinking, she stepped outside, still wearing her apron, and stood between the biker and the police.
"He didn't do anything wrong," she said firmly.
The world seemed to stop, and that moment changed her life forever. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Ava wasn't someone who liked attention. She worked long shifts, saving money for nursing school, invisible to most who passed through. The diner sat off Highway 66, a place forgotten by time but loved by truckers and bikers. That night, she had noticed the man earlier, and his name tag read Jax Rivers. His eyes tired, his jacket marked with a charity ride patch. The officers accused him of evading a checkpoint, but Ava had seen him helping an old man fix a tire just 20 minutes earlier. Her voice trembled as she spoke to the officers, trying to explain. Customers watched in stunned silence. Even the cook peeked out from behind the counter. The tension was thick, the air electric. Finally, the lead cop sighed, checked his radio, and told Jax to move along. Ava exhaled in relief, unaware that dozens of cameras had captured everything. By morning, the footage was everywhere. Waitress defends biker from police, and headlines flashed across every feed. Ava's boss wasn't happy. He didn't want trouble or viral fame. She faced angry calls, online threats, even pressure from the diner's owner to apologize publicly. But Ava refused. "Doing what's right isn't bad publicity," she said quietly, though fear burned inside her. That evening, as the sun dipped low, the diner grew strangely quiet again. Then the distant roar of engines 1, 2, 10, 50. The ground began to tremble. Ava looked out the window and froze. The parking lot was filling, row after row of bikes, chrome gleaming under the sunset. Within minutes, the diner was surrounded by nearly 200 riders. Engines rumbling like thunder. She thought it was the police again, until she saw who led them. The night after the incident, Ava couldn't sleep. Her phone kept buzzing, messages, news clips, and strangers tagging her online. The video of her standing up to the police had gone viral, spreading faster than wildfire. Some called her a hero. Others said she interfered with law enforcement. The diner owner warned her, "We don't need this kind of attention, Ava." But she just stared out the window, wondering if she'd done the right thing. By morning, reporters gathered outside the diner. Customers whispered as she served coffee, pretending not to notice the cameras flashing through the glass. She felt eyes on her everywhere she went. That's when she heard it in a low rumble in the distance. Faint at first, then louder. It wasn't thunder. It was engines. The sound grew. Dozens, then hundreds of motorcycles. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Ava stepped outside, shielding her eyes from the sun. Over the hill, a line of bikers appeared, stretching farther than she could see. Chrome glistened. Jackets fluttered in the wind. They kept coming. Within minutes, the diner's parking lot was full, engines idling like a storm about to break. Ava froze, her pulse quickening. The cook whispered from behind her, "Are they here for you?" She didn't answer. One biker stepped forward, removing his helmet. It was Jax Rivers, the same man she'd defended. He looked different now, calm, proud, surrounded by brothers and sisters on bikes. "You stood for one of us," he said, voice echoing through a megaphone. "So now, we stand for you." The crowd erupted in cheers, their engines roaring in unison. Ava's eyes filled with tears as riders handed her flowers, patches, and envelopes. Some bowed their heads in respect. Across the street, police cruisers arrived again, but this time, they didn't move in. They just watched silently, understanding that something powerful was happening. News drones hovered above, cameras rolling. But no lens could truly capture what the moment felt like. Unity, loyalty, and gratitude stronger than fear. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Ava realized the truth. One act of courage had started a wave she could never stop. The night she stepped out in faith, she didn't just defend a man, she awakened a brotherhood. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the cracked parking lot like gold. The storm had passed, but the scent of rain still lingered in the air. Inside the diner, everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same anymore. Ava sat at her usual booth, a half-empty coffee cup in front of her, watching the quiet street outside. When she looked up, the bell above the door rang. A man walked in, an older biker with silver hair and a leather vest. He placed a small envelope on her counter and said softly, "For you from the road." Before she could respond, he smiled, tipped his helmet, and left. Inside the envelope was a note. "Courage is contagious." As the day went on, more riders came. Families, too. People she'd never met but who had seen her story and wanted to thank her. One woman said, "You reminded us that kindness still exists." Another whispered, "My son saw your video and stood up for a classmate yesterday." Ava couldn't hold back her tears. By evening, the diner was full again, laughter, music, and the low hum of engines outside. Someone had hung a handmade sign above the counter, "Ava's Mile, where courage stops for coffee." She tried to laugh, but her voice cracked from emotion. Her co-workers cheered, and the bikers raised their cups in her honor. Days turned into weeks, and the story refused to fade. Donations poured in from across the country, letters from veterans, truckers, and single mothers, all saying the same thing: "Thank you for standing up when it was hard." The owner who once wanted her gone now smiled proudly when people asked about her. Months later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was from a nursing school in Phoenix. She'd been accepted. Full scholarship covered by a community fund started by the riders. Ava sat on her bed, the letter shaking in her hands, tears rolling down her cheeks. For the first time, she let herself cry, not out of fear, but out of gratitude. On her last day at the diner, she stood outside one final time. The sun was setting, the sky painted in orange and pink. Far off, she heard it again, the sound of distant motorcycles echoing down the highway. She smiled. That sound wasn't noise anymore, it was a reminder. A reminder that doing the right thing, even when you're scared, can change the world in ways you never expect. That courage doesn't need a stage, it just needs a moment. Ava locked the diner door, whispered a quiet thank you, and walked away into the sunset, her heart full, her spirit unbreakable. Because sometimes one brave act isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of hundreds more.